news about e-invoicing or electronic invoicing that has come from the government of India. Now, more and more businesses are set to be brought under the ambit of e-invoicing or electronic invoicing from the month of August onwards. Bear in mind, the e-invoicing concept was introduced by the government mainly for business-to-business transactions that take place online. Now, more businesses get to be included in that e-invoicing, and also many small businesses which will be brought under the ambit of the e-invoicing don't need a registered GST number to even transact online and pay the invoice and get this e-invoicing. That's as far as I understand. Kartik will help us understand this better. Kartik, correct me where I'm wrong and tell us the importance of e-invoicing per se.
Right, no correction required, Krishna. You're spot on. So I think let's look at it in context. GST, we just completed on Saturday. We completed the 6th anniversary of GST. We've had a record run. In the month of April, GST collection soared to 1.87 lakh crore rupees for 1 month alone. And we've been averaging 1.5 lakh crores and upwards for the last 1 year, ever since the economy recovered from the pandemic shocks. Now, what is e-invoicing? Very simply put, this is an electronic invoice which gets generated, or you raise this as a seller, you raise this invoice as soon as you have an order confirmation from the counterparty. So you want to sell something in the B2B space to a seller. As a supplier, you sell to an eventual seller. You go onto the GSTN portal and you raise an electronic invoice. So why an electronic invoice? Very simply because that electronic invoice is going to have a unique identification number. So to curb any sort of tax evasion, to curb any sort of fraudulent invoicing that may happen from business to business, you raise an e-invoice at the time of sale, and this e-invoice is absolutely mandatory so that there is tallying of books between the supplier and the eventual seller in the B2B space. So for example, you want to sell this beautiful tweed jacket of yours. If you're a manufacturer of these jackets on, let's say, Amazon.in, as a supplier, for every product, let's say this is priced at 5,000 rupees, at which you sell it to Amazon, you raise an electronic invoice that I have sold 1 piece of this jacket to Amazon. This 5,000 rupees gets tallied through this unique invoice, digital invoice, on your books as well as on the books of Amazon.in. So the books get tallied, there is no tax evasion, and you continue to do business in the B2B space very easily. Now, when e-invoicing was introduced back on 1st October 2020, the threshold for mandatory e-invoicing was set at businesses with a turnover of 500 crore rupees or more. 500 crore rupees. Very few takers. So you wanted to go after the large businesses in a hope that any tax evasion that happened on their account could return a much larger corpus of tax collections, right? That gradually got reduced over time to 10 crore rupees. From 500 crore rupees, mandatory e-invoicing got reduced to 10 crore rupees. Any business doing sales in the B2B space in excess of 10 crore rupees mandatorily have to e-invoice every single transaction. Now GSTN wants to further widen the tax net. CBIC, the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, comes into play and says, let's widen this e-invoicing tax net to further prevent any loss of revenue to the state on account of false, inaccurate, fraudulent invoicing by reducing this threshold from 10 crore rupees to 5 crore rupees. So any seller doing business in excess of 5 crore rupees now has to mandatorily record every transaction with any party it supplies to using this unique e-invoicing code.
And so, one more thing, great news for small businesses that now they come under the e-invoicing ambit, they get more organized in that sense. But small businesses don't need to have a GST registration number starting from the 1st of October. Tell us, what does that mean?
Right. So from what I understand, up until now, there was this threshold of offline retailers or offline sellers, direct retailers, not requiring a GST registration up to sales of 40 lakh rupees annually. And any player in the B2B space required, no matter what volume of sales they did, required a GST registration. Now with this e-invoicing coming in for players who are doing business in excess of 5 crore rupees, to my understanding, and I could be wrong, to my understanding, any player in the B2B space doing transactions on par with the offline retailers of up to 40 lakh rupees need not have GST registration, just like their offline partners. But e-invoicing becomes mandatory for 5 crore rupees and upwards of annual transactions. Now, while this widens the tax net, of course, there is greater compliance required on the part of small businesses, and GST, in any case, filing these monthly GST advanced taxes returns is a complex process, and usually is not something, unlike the Saral income tax returns, is not something you can do without a CA. So you require a chartered accountant to file your GST returns month on month. Now, while there is ease for 5 crore to 10 crore rupee turnover businesses on account of this automated invoicing, it makes their job simpler, but it also calls for greater compliance because they are by law now required to file these e-invoices. So there is going to be some training required and some familiarization with the GSTN portal. But I think it is now going to be easier for, let's say, the end seller in the case of B2B to also reduce the compliance burden on them, because through this e-invoicing, they don't need to do e-invoicing balancing for 10 crore and upward revenue sellers, but also for the guys who are 5 crores and upward. So number of vendors through which this automated e-invoicing confirms directly, automatically for the end sellers like Amazon, Flipkart, other e-commerce players becomes easier now. So reduces the compliance burden on these large marketplaces, but increases the compliance burden for some small enterprises out there.
Fair enough. We'll have to see how this pans out going forward. Either which way, it kicks in starting the 1st of October.
That's
with small businesses being brought into the ambit starting the month of August onwards. We will be keeping our eyes on the story.
So actually, 1st August is when this kicks in, but the GST registration not mandatory.
That kicks in for the 1st of October.
Comes in from the 1st of October.
True, true. So businesses will be brought into the ambit for e-invoicing becomes mandatory from the 1st of August.
That's right.
And for those not having a GST number, they can start doing it from the 1st of October onwards.
That's
so we will be keeping our eyes on the story and tracking it and getting you the latest.